Today, I'm taking you back to a trip I went to in Laos. The trip started off with a train ride from where I live to the airport, and it was actually a pretty long train trip, to be completely honest. It was a solid 2.5 hour journey. From the airport, we flew into the city of Vientiane. Might actually be called Vientiane. I'm not too sure. When we arrived in Vientiane or Vientiane or whatever it's actually called, we were met by the people where you get the visa from, like the border police people. I didn't include footage here in the video because it was a bit of a weird situation where we had to have $10 in cash, completely undamaged, which I didn't have. So I ended up talking to them about how I can pay. Can I use Australian dollars maybe? Can I use this or that? They wanted like 50 Australian dollars, which is obviously way more than $10. Mind blowing. Anyway, we figured it out. And this kind of sets the theme nicely for how this trip in Laos went. I have nothing against Laos. I think it's a beautiful place. However, the tour group that I went with, which was very last minute, I was kind of invited by some family friends to go with them. The tour group was average, but more on that later. We left the airport and I got in a bus, put some flowers on my head, and we proceeded through the town to what would be our very first stop. The drive from the airport to and through the town to where we would have lunch took around 45 minutes-ish, give or take. And unfortunately, first stop of this tour group was to go to a Chinese restaurant. Now, keep in mind, I was with a Chinese group of tourists. They were an older bunch of people, sort of over, I would say, 60 years old. And maybe as soon as they left China, they were craving more Chinese food that wasn't really Chinese food. I don't know. But like I said, this tour group was a bit weird. Worth noting as well, when we left, we were leaving from the city of Kunming in China, which is in Yunnan province, over to Laos. The flight was about an hour and a half. We then arrived at our first destination, which was like the city center and the government house buildings. We saw a couple of other things, like a temple that we were actually allowed to go into, which was really nice. That was more what I thought I would be seeing when I was in Laos. We went for a little walk around this temple. They said not to use our phones inside, but it was fine to record from the outside, so that's exactly what I did. We left from there and went past this government building very briefly, and then back to the city center fountain thing and big city gate. The city gate was actually huge and super cool. This was like really what I wanted to see in Laos. So I'll give the tour guide some credit here where it's, I guess, kind of due on allowing us to go in and see this particular building. The architecture from this region is just so beautiful. It's very similar to Thailand, very similar to Vietnam. Not the same thing though. It's a different culture, it's a different country, it's something special of its own. We climbed up to the roof of that thing and you could see out over the whole city of Vientiane or whatever it's called. We went out and had some food at a local market, which was not too far away. It was at least something local and not Chinese food. However, most of the food that we were taking to eat here was Chinese food, which by about day 2, I just stopped going. We then traveled from there to where our hotel was, which problem number 2 was a hotel group built by some Chinese investors. And in Laos, a lot of Laos infrastructure has been built by Chinese investors or the Chinese government, or a collaboration between the two countries or something along those lines. This hotel was only for Chinese tourists though. So for me to go there with an Australian passport was difficult and weird. I've never been in a country outside of China being rejected for having an Australian passport at a hotel that's only allowing Chinese people. There's some weird things going on here. All of the staff there were Chinese. They were all speaking Chinese. They were 100% Chinese, but that's fine. it is what it is. Let's move on. We took our rest. I eventually was able to stay there because my wife was with me and my parents-in-law, who are all Chinese, have Chinese passports, were allowed to stay. So they didn't want me to sleep in the street. Thank you to those guys. So I appreciate that. The next day we went to a very touristy area, which was sort of like a theme park of ancient culture. And I say theme park because of the way it's been set up, where it's like each little section of these temples and gardens and features like their own little theme where you line up and go into them. It was a little bit of a strange setup, a little bit weird, but it was super cool, and I had a really good time there, enjoying sort of weather that's really similar to where I'm from in Australia. It's very humid, very hot, very wet and sweaty. And I really enjoyed the sort of serenity or peace of this area being right on the Mekong Delta River. It was a very cool place, and across the river you could see Thailand, which I thought was quite cool. We spent the majority of the day looking around here because there wasn't a huge amount of other stuff to do in this city for a tourist other than exploring like the local shops, which I particularly wasn't really interested in. We went from here onto, and this is where I sort of just left the group, onto the back of a little truck and went for a ride along the Mekong Delta, which was probably one of my favorite parts of this trip, seeing some like actual real life of the people living around here and maybe some more of the Western tourist stuff outside of the Chinese tourist stuff. Seeing people parasail, seeing people in hot air balloons, seeing people in the river playing and swimming and drinking even and eating food and just having a good time. Later that night, we did a ritual thing, which was to light some little lanterns up and to make a wish and hope that they take our wishes into the sky. This was actually quite a fun experience. I didn't mind this at all, and I thought it was quite cool to see, that we were able to do this and really sort of get our best wishes and dreams out there into the open, which it turned out the dreams that I made here actually came true. All of them came true, which was that's cool. I mean, that's awesome. The next day I got on another one of these little cars and got to drive in one of these little dirt buggies, which was super fun. This was way more up my alley of fun things to do instead of just going to Chinese restaurants and staying in Chinese hotels and doing very Chinese stuff. From there we went to this like blue lagoon place, which was pretty cool. You could swim with the fishes, which I did. We had some food there as well, and later went into this cavern discovery walk thing, which was pretty cool actually. It was very quite rugged. There's not really much that you can hold on to. It's not like it's been modernized so that it's easy to walk through. You basically just walk through the rocks and follow the little arrows. From there, and later that day, we caught a train out from Vientiane or Vientiane out to Luang Prabang. The first stop for me, while everyone went to the Chinese restaurant, I went to the Luang Prabang night market, which is on the Mekong Delta. It's right along the side, and there was so much good food there. There was lots of Western food. There was lots of local food. There was lots of everything food, lots of like really good seafoods and stuff like that. I really enjoyed this personally. I thought this was like one of the highlights of the trip for me. After dinner, we went for a little walk along the street, and I found a shop that actually sold Somersby ciders. Now, for anyone who's Australian, Somersby is like the thing. Like, it's an Australian cider. It's not that special, but it was special for me at the time. The next day, we went out on a walk to the top of a mountain to look out over the city or town or whatever you want to call it of Luang Prabang. It was quite a hike up there. It took about an hour and a half for my wife and I to get to the top, but the views, as you can see here, were absolutely sensational. The day was quite misty, and with the humidity, the smog or fog even over the city was pretty thick, but it was really nice. It was quite magical. After that, we came down the mountain and we went to a temple place where you couldn't wear shorts, and I only had shorts with me. So I had to wear a dress into this place, which was just part of it, I guess. I enjoyed myself. I flared it up a little bit. We also visited a cool cafe called Lulu Bar Cafe, and then later went to a part of the tour group lunch near a waterfall, which was actually pretty nice. It was a really nice lunch waterfall of local foods in a local place. Now, I am an absolute sucker for a waterfall and also a fancy lunch place, so this was right up my alley. No one else went for a swim, but I went for a swim because, I don't know, I enjoyed myself, and I wasn't going to let it hold me back. So I went for a swim, and on the way back, we went through another sort of back end town area towards a small zoo area. Now, this zoo was more of a preservation of moon and sun bears, which this was actually the first time in my life I had ever seen a moon and or sun bear in the same day. This place was like nothing else though. This, dare I say, zoo was more of a place you could actually go swimming, a place that you could go up through and do hikes and see the bears in their wild environments, although they are kind of shielded off from the people. Although, to be completely honest, there's not much that would stop them just breaking through those fences. Bears are big. I went for a swim here. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. This was one of the highlights, with a few more to come. Later that night, we went to dinner at another kind of fancy place. This was one that my wife and I sort of looked up to book because the tour guide by this point was getting sick of people just not going on the tour with him because he was that bad. Yeah. So we went to this fancy restaurant, which was awesome. We got some wine. We enjoyed the sunset, and it was actually quite magical. It was a really nice night. After that, we went to this area just near where we were having dinner, which is apparently like a night market that we found out is the next morning. There was like the monks of the area of that region do like a walk along there, and you can give them different foods or provisions for them for their week. This was like a once in a week experience, and seeing as I was only there for a couple of days, the next morning we woke up early. We got up, I think it was about 5:30 or 6 in the morning, and we went to the walk to hand out provisions for these monks. It was actually pretty cool, and one of the more memorable experiences of this entire trip. After that, we went through this insanely busy market, which we cleared out of pretty quickly. But we did spend a bit of time there just sort of walking around, getting food, enjoying ourselves, and sort of soaking in the environment without the tour guide. The next day was our second last day in Luang Prabang, and we enjoyed ourselves by going on a Mekong Delta cruise. This cruise was on like a small boat. We had food on there, we had drinks. It was basically the entire afternoon and evening of that day. So in the morning we just went to cafes and ate some croissants, had some coffee, enjoyed ourselves, getting around and sort of experiencing somewhere else. Although not super different food, obviously I was eating croissants. This was by far the number one thing I would recommend you to do if you do go to Luang Prabang or Laos. I can't remember exactly how much it was. I think it was about, for that whole experience, $100 per person Australian, but absolutely worthwhile. 1,000,000% worthwhile. You got to do it. Give it a try. As the sun goes down over the hills and it soaks into the river, which is massive, by the way, you see people playing, you see people living, you see other boats, you see birds, you see fish, you see everything. It's beautiful. These videos don't do it justice. The next day we went to the Luang Prabang train station, which is primarily Chinese, from what I could see anyway. It's all written in Chinese. And we went from there through to China. We stopped off at a town which I've made a video of before called Sichuanbana, and that's on the Chinese border. And while they share a lot of culture, they are two different places. We went through there all the way back into Kunming, and that was the end of our journey. If you're thinking of going to Laos, if you're thinking of going to this sort of Indochina region of the world, it's absolutely worthwhile. You don't need a lot of money to do it. It was a super cheap trip. My only recommendation is don't go on a tour group.